want to share a testimony with all of you guys about something that happened to me at Red School. The Lord truly set me free from the fear that I'd been living in since I was 8 years old. I was grasped by the grips of the enemy, by a demon, a very specific demon, and I just lived life literally with his hands around my throat for so many years. And so I'm traveling today, but I just wanted to take a moment to share this with you. When I was 8 years old, I remember standing at a screen door, looking out the back into the backyard, where my father had just murdered a man, and I could look over to the right and see the body of a man laying there who meant a lot to me. I could see the destruction that the 12-gauge shotgun had caused, and I was just in shock looking through this door. My dad stood directly in front of me, holding my mom, about to take her life. And in that moment, I can look back at it now and discern in my spirit and know exactly what was taking place that day. It's beyond me to really understand how the Lord shows it to me. But in that day, something happened that was so significant and that affected me for many, many years, up until just a few months ago when I was at Red School. As my dad was about to take my mom's life, and the enemy, a very specific demon, looked over at me and saw me, an innocent little 8-year-old boy, there in shock, in fear, and he left the where he was at, and he rushed over to me, and he never left me for many years. He never left me for well over 25 years. He stayed with me and has tortured me through years of ministry and through years of seeking the Lord and wanting to know Him more. I was tortured and hindered in my spirit by this particular demon. My dad ended up shooting himself in the chest. He lived and he went on to prison for 10 years. But after that day, I was tormented by this demon. And many years later, when I had gotten married, Alicia and I would be laying in the bed, and I would wake up and completely soaking wet in sweat, or wake up screaming, and the moment that I would wake up, and if the lights were out, I could not with my physical eyes, but in my spirit, I could see in the corner this demon watching me and torturing me, and just bringing about fear in my life. And I wanted him gone. I wanted it to be out of my life. I wanted to experience the fullness of God's presence and not be hindered by this demon. And I knew God wanted to set me free from it, but I was so afraid of the idea of confronting this demon that I refused to really, really call out to the Lord and ask Him to free me from it. And so many occasions I laid in the bed and shook and literally felt physically attacked sometimes on certain occasions, and my wife would be really, really scared and didn't know what to do. And on one occasion she called the ambulance, and then when the ambulance got there, everything went away, and when the lights would come on, everything would be fine. And so we had story after story after story of just being tormented by this particular demon. Well, one time I was having, just a couple years ago, about a year and a half ago, I was having a casual conversation with Ben Nider in his home. And Ben and I were talking about just random things, nothing serious, nothing spiritual, and in the middle of the conversation, mid-sentence, he stopped as though someone had interrupted him, and he was looking right out in front of me where I was sitting, and he acknowledged that there was a demonic presence in the room staring at me, and that he wanted to expel it from his home and expel it from my life. And he described this demonic presence like no one ever had before. He described it exactly the way that I'd always seen it. Every time that he had come to torment me, this is how I saw it. And he said it was like a wolf standing there ready to pounce, and it was just the appearance of a mean wolf that was ready to just eat you up, just attack you. And it caused nothing but fear and devastation whenever you saw it. And so he immediately, with very little effort, just by faith, just said, go, and it left immediately. And I was amazed. And so for the first time, I was introduced to the idea that not only does Christ have power, but He has authority over the enemy. And I began to realize that I could just say go, and the enemy would go. So a few months later, during Red School, I was sitting there listening and watching. We had watched a video about demons being cast out, and then Jimmy began to speak, and a couple other people began to speak, and all the while this was going on, the Holy Spirit was working in me, and He was trying to draw me in to come and to cry out to Him and let Him free me from this demon. And this demon began to manifest in my body, literally, physically, and everyone was sitting up in kind of a classroom setting in the Red School there, and my back began to hurt so bad that, in spite of the fact that the atmosphere kind of demanded me to sit there in a classroom, respectful setting, I was hurting so bad in my back because of the pain that was being caused by the manifestation of the presence of this demon in me and around me, or however it works, that I literally had to get up and go and lay down in some chairs and lay down, and I laid there for probably 30 minutes, and then when the ministry time came, I was in so much pain I could hardly even stand up and walk, but I kind of hobbled up like an old man who had been crippled, and I hobbled up and waited for what felt like 20 or 30 minutes in a line of people who were receiving ministry. Finally, it was my time, and Jimmy Turner and Jim Baker and Jonathan Oliphant began to pray with me, and the Lord began to reveal why I was there, and we began to pray specifically, and Jimmy kind of led the way, and the Lord had led him to ask me a very specific question after probably 30-45 minutes of praying, and he asked me where the Lord was in that moment when all this began. I told him the story, and I told him what had happened and how this demon had been torturing me for many, many years, and giving them the same story that I just shared with you about when I was an 8-year-old boy. And the Lord led him to ask me to try to close my eyes and try to see where Jesus was in that moment. And in that moment, I searched and searched and searched. It was as though I was a little boy again, and I was running through the house searching for Jesus, trying to find where Jesus was in that moment. And all I'd ever experienced when I thought of that moment as an 8-year-old boy, all I'd ever experienced was fear and shock and just feeling just wrought with this pain of this agonizing fear. And in this moment, all I wanted was to find Jesus. Well, I searched and searched and searched, and I couldn't find him anywhere. And then in a moment, the Lord just dropped into my memory. He just recalled a memory that about a week later, after everything had happened with my dad murdering this man and then shooting himself in the chest, in the very same place that all of that had happened, right there in the backyard on the driveway, right in the same place where I had looked out the screen door, the Lord reminded me that about a week later after that event happened, that had so gripped me and messed me up for so many years, He reminded me that I was playing on a little ride-on toy as a little boy, and I was riding around in a circle and just having a good little time. I was alone. I didn't need anybody else. I just wanted to play. I was having so much fun. I was experiencing so much joy in spite of the fact that something tragic had just happened to me a week earlier. And the Lord spoke to me in that moment as Jimmy and them continued to pray for him, and He said, I'm going to allow you to play in the places where the devil has tried to cause death and destruction, and where he has brought about death. I'm going to allow you to go back to those places, and I'm going to breathe life into those places, and you're going to play there, and you're going to play there with joy like a little child plays, and not needing anyone else around, just playing by themselves. He said, I'm going to allow you to do that because I can, because I want to, and because I want to see my child play, even though the enemy comes at you with destruction and with death, and he brings tragedy into your life and tries to torment you and torture you. I can overcome him. I can set you free from his tormenting acts, and I can allow you to play in those places. So I walked away from there a different person that night. And to this day, I have never seen the wolf again. I have never seen that demon that had tortured me for over 25 years. I have never seen him again. He has never approached me. I have never sensed him in any way. And I used to, on an almost daily basis, sense his presence, know that he was there, be gripped by the fear. And the Lord truly set me free. And ever since then, not only am I set free from that torture, but I have experienced freedom in the Spirit of God. He's begun to release giftings that He's placed in me for years. He's begun to release the power of the Holy Spirit. And it's just amazing to me. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. I know this has been a little bit long, but I just wanted to share that testimony because it has truly changed who I am. And everything that I do today, it is kind of spun out of what God did on that day. And I'm just blessed that that I got to be a part of Red School, and that I'm so thankful that my brothers, those 3 brothers there that night, were patient. I knew that I was safe with them. I knew that they weren't going to leave me, and I knew that we were going to get down and to business and see that the enemy was defeated and that God was glorified. Thank you for listening.